Okay, today on the show, we have Joe Zimmerman from the Zimmerman Group with Keller Williams One Chicago in here, where I broadcast out of Chicago, Illinois. Let me tell you a little bit about Joe. Now, with more than 18 years experience in the real estate industry, Joe Zimmerman has the tools and resources to provide each client and each agent on his team with something greater during every step of their real estate experience. Now, Joe has been consistently recognized as a top producer in Chicago. He's a bit of a legend here. He's also built a team that sells more than 200 homes per year. Now, the Zimmerman Group continues to rank within the top 1% of the Chicago Association of Realtors, which is a big deal because there's about 20,000 members. So he's in the top 1%. And he has been personally recognized by the National Association of Realtors as one of their top 30 under 30. We've had many 30 under 30 people here. Joe, of course, has been one as well. And the Chicago Association of Realtors has named him a top 40 under 40 list for his achievements in sales. Now, as an agent and as a team leader, Joe brings his excellent client service and extensive industry knowledge to each individual relationship. Above all else, Joe is a family man, and likewise, he encourages his colleagues to prioritize a healthy work-life balance because he knows that personal joy yields professional success. Now, please visit the Zimmerman Group to learn more about what Joe and his team offer and here's the website. It is thezpg.com. I'm going to spell that one more time. It's the Z as in Zimmerman, P as in Paul, G as in group, .com, thezpg.com. And by the way, I always forget to mention this until the very end. And just in case you're about to sign off or log off and you've heard of this far, Joe and his team are always looking for talent to join the Zimmerman Group. So another reason to visit thezpg.com is whether you're a client looking to work with a top producing team, or if you're an agent wanting to work with a top producing team, check out thezpg.com. That will also be in the show notes for this article. For this episode. Joe, thanks I know there's a long intro, but thanks so much for being on our show.
Hey, DJ, I appreciate it. Thank you very much as well. And I'm glad to be your Chicago representative here today. So thanks again. I appreciate it. I'm honored to get this started.
It's funny. I was telling Joe just before we started that our producer Zana said, I can't remember the last time we've had a Chicago guest. We have a couple of Chicago guests that regularly come on, but not in this sort of style of episode we're doing now. So it's been a while for us. So we're excited to talk to a local Chicago guy. And you have such an impressive just history in this industry, and your reputation is incredible as well. But I'd like to go all the way back to the beginning of your real estate career. I would love to hear, and our audience, I'm sure, would love to hear sort of why you got into real estate and how it happened for you.
Yeah, DJ, happy to share that. So I know it's been a while now. It's actually been 20 plus years now. So,
wow.
I actually got into the real estate by default. I knew that I always loved the creative aspect of in the architecture and creative aspect of homes and things like that. And loft, the Chicago loft, like almost like the movie Big, right? Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
That was always a dream, right? Although
Sure.
Chicago, but that was that. So anyways, I started looking for real estate. I've always been a saver and somebody that basically was an entrepreneur at heart. And I never rented, right? Outside of college. So I saved up my money and decided, hey, I'm gonna go look for a condo, actually a loft in the city of Chicago. And when I started looking for it, I realized the love I had for it. So I was in the medical field right then at that point in time out of college. I was in the medical field and I did not like hospitals, DJ. So obviously that was not going to work out for me. So anyways, sure. I went to my real estate agent at the time and said, this is really cool what you do. This is awesome. And he looked at me and said, you should get in this. You should do this. And literally I took the week's course later and I jumped right into it.
Wow. So what age were you when you were like right out of school, basically?
Yeah. So I graduated college in I was 21 and had a year job in the medical field at 22. And I started real estate in 23.
Wow. That first of all, it's impressive that you bought a place and never rented and were sort of savvy enough to save money at a time when I know at that age, at those ages, I just, it wasn't even an idea that I would own a place in the next, 5-10 years. So that's, I would say, yeah, that's probably a pretty good indicator that you're into this industry. And I
Yeah.
was, as you were talking about the Chicago loft experience and like the movie Big, and like, I remember, it's funny that you brought that up because I hadn't thought about that movie in a long time, but that scene where he gets his own place
Right.
is, I was like, man, that looks like paradise, because I was, young at the time. And I just remember how beautiful
right?
that
Trampoline in the loft.
he had like a pinball machine, he had a
Yeah.
video game, and he had all sorts of cool things in there.
Exactly.
But you're absolutely right. That's a great first introduction to real estate in a sense. And then, look, I mean, a 23-year-old starting in this industry as a real estate broker is a tough thing, because I'm assuming most of your friends probably weren't as forward thinking as you at that age to start home ownership. I suspect you can do some leasing that would keep you busy, but I am curious in like, how does a 23-year-old start to get clients? It just seems like that would be a really difficult task.
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, DJ, it was different what was that, 2002?
Yeah.
Different environment than it is in 2022, right? So, but at the end of the day, you're right. It was difficult because more people were renting instead of buying, right? And I didn't believe in renting, right? I believed in home ownership.
Right.
So the hustle was real, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it any other way. How did you do it? Really grit, right? Really kind of just understanding that you were gonna have to work hard. Now, that changed, organically changed for me in my life. But in the beginning, I knew nothing other than work hard, talk to people, and opportunity is going to come to you. So at 23 years old, I just, I out hustled a lot of my competitors.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been doing this show a long time, and that answer is absolutely the most consistent answer we get about how'd you get started, particularly for agents that start younger, but even really for any age and at any age, that seems to be the universal answer. And I keep hoping one day somebody will say, no, I have the super secret technique that only I know about, but I'll share it with your audience. Hasn't happened yet. So it seems to be grit and just learning the industry. I imagine, in 2002, there was so much development going on too. And I know that I do remember those times. There were interest only loans that were real popular, and people were able to, sort of do things maybe a little differently than they are today. But, how important were, like, for a new agent like yourself, how important by using grit were things like open houses? Was that important for you as an agent who maybe didn't have listings, but sort of, I don't know how popular that was back then for new agents to say to more experienced agents, hey, can I come do open houses for you?
Yeah, I mean, DJ, is a great question, and I appreciate it. And I did open houses and realized early on I did not like them, right? So, now fast forward through some years, I've had some coaches in my career and stuff like that, and who have basically said to me, hey, do what you want to do, right? Like build the business that you want to build by stuff that you will absolutely do. Well, I realized early on that I was not going to be doing open houses, right? So but I did leverage other agents that I worked with, at the brokerage I worked with, to get opportunity to go out there and show places, right? And build relationships with people. So I educated myself. But really what I did at a high level was just contact people, right? Which we now know is, kind of categorized in my world as the 33 touch of Gary Keller, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. But I literally came up and grew up in a culture that my parents taught me of just, it's a contact sport. No matter what you're doing as far as sales is concerned, it's a contact sport. So just talk to people, right? And talk about an opportunity for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. That probably is. It's funny. I have a personal trainer, and I asked her. I asked her recently. I've been with her for a few years, and I said, boy, I said, it's funny. People are always looking for like the fountain of youth, and maybe there are some particular lifestyle habits that will prolong people's lives. Obviously, diet, exercise, various things to improve happiness and et cetera. And she goes, you know what the real fountain of youth is? She goes, it's a strength training. And she goes, it's, that's actually, sort of what science has said is one of the most beneficial ways to sort of slow down the aging process. And I wish it was something that took a lot less effort. But I think contacting people is maybe that same thing for real estate agent success. And it really is about your sphere of influence. And like, I'm a huge fan of Gary Keller. And of course you are too, you work at his company.
Right.
But Gary Keller, of course, with The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which is, I haven't found anything better written about how to be successful. And I know it was recently updated, but yeah, the 33 touches is everything, right? It's making sure everybody, doesn't forget what you do and why they should contact you. So I'm curious too, because I know that there's a lot of our listeners who think, well, I know I should be talking to my sphere and just, you've mentioned presenting them with an opportunity. If you don't mind, and I don't want you to share, too much of your team's sort of secret sauce, but when you are talking about an opportunity, what are some of the things that you mentioned to your contacts?
Yeah, no, and DJ, we're myself and my team are open book and transparent.
Yeah.
So we will share everything that we can because we believe that we should get the industry better together, right?
Yeah.
And not be competitors, right? And just there's
Sure.
enough to go around. So to that point, what do? Well, now in the world of social media, right, and LinkedIn and Facebook and all that, people typically know what you do, right? That's a fair statement to say, right?
Yeah.
So what our strategy now is really building a community of like-minded people. And we do that through events, okay? And I want to define events for you. An event is a call to action. It's not necessarily, a lot of times you hear events and you think, oh, I got to throw a party or I got to do something that's going to cost money. That is part of it, but it's also a call to action thing, right? Something call to action to bring value to your clients, to build a community of like-minded people. So at the end of the day, right, it's easy to call people up or text people in today's world or whatever your preferred method of communication is, and just say, hey, DJ, it's Joe Zimmerman calling. I just want to let you know about an event that we're having. Would love to invite you and see if you and your family would be welcome to come, or welcome to join us, however that is, right? So at the end of the day, we're not doing the, never too busy for your referrals or
right.
Anything like that. We're really just building a community of like-minded people who want to help support each other.
Yeah, and I love all of that. And I will just, this is my own personal preference, and there's of course no right or wrong answer to this, but please don't do the I'm never too busy for your referrals thing. That's been played out 30, 40 years ago. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to read it. Say something different. But I think what Joe said is a great, so I asked Joe, just to go recap this question, what are you reaching out to people? What's the opportunity? And Joe said, well, I create an event with an opportunity. It gives me a perfect reason to reach out and say, oh, by the way, I'm hosting this thing. If you want to show up, great. Now I suspect with, I don't know, are you guys going back to doing in person or are you still staying virtual for now?
DJ, we're doing a hybrid of both, right?
Nice.
So sometimes it's, hey, come by and pick up, a bottle of wine from us. Or sometimes it's, hey, support this local charity like Pause in Chicago. We just did an where we supported Pause in Chicago. It was outside, right? But one of the better ones that we did, DJ, which I would encourage everyone to do, was last year because you couldn't visit Santa, right? We brought Santa to them via Zoom, right? So we had
brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, right? We sent it out and had time slots registered to Zoom with Santa, right? So we have hired a Santa, had the fire Santa background. We had probably 150 families registered for this.
Wow, I've never heard of anybody having done that. It seems like such a no-brainer. And wow, what a and so I love this too, because this isn't necessarily a, hey, and again, in no way am I suggesting that having events that are like first-time homebuyer webinars are not or seminars are not a good idea. Those are great ideas, but I love the fact that you're having other types of events, social events, fun events, volunteer events like with Pause. The Santa thing is amazing. And what a great, basically you're just providing value to people.
Yeah, just letting them really, in today's world, people want to know who you are, right? They want to know what you stand for and who you are. Obviously now being in the real estate career for 20 years, I have, as you said, the reputation is, I can sell a home. right?
Right.
And I could find a home for someone. But at the end of the day, people want to feel good about what you stand for and who you are. So having these events is, is something that we do at a high level and do well to let them know who we are, that we care about them, right?
Sure. And being passionate, like Pause is such a great example of a charitable organization that and I think they're nationwide, I believe, but certainly they have a huge presence here in Chicago, and they're basically an animal shelter adoption center. And it's funny. I've always thought volunteer efforts really don't get utilized enough by real estate agents as an event, because I think most people are very busy in their lives, especially if they have families and children, and maybe they have this aspiration to volunteer more, but they're probably busy. They're working a job. They're also doing home stuff and, everything else that is included in just living a life. And sometimes volunteer stuff doesn't always make the top of that list. And so here you are giving them an opportunity to fulfill maybe even that part of them that doesn't always get to be able to do that. So they're going to feel good about themselves. They're going to feel good about you also for introducing them to it. And who doesn't like animals, right? So and not to say that was a calculated thing. I'm sure you're super passionate about Paws. I adopted a pet from actually from anti-cruelty, not Paws, but I'm a big believer in that stuff too. But again, people just love animals and they love to want to give back. And so it's really such a smart thing to offer, because it gives people a reason to feel good about themselves and at the same time go, hey, Joe put this really cool event together. So I love that. I absolutely love that.
You said opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to feel good about yourself, right? To go, whether, no matter what it is, it's some sort of opportunity to do something, right?
Totally. I'd like to talk. I know you are extremely passionate about mindset. We talk about this a lot on the show. It comes up a lot, but I think it can never be talked about too much until my audience tells me no more mindset stuff, because after 5 years, they just ask for more and more discussion on mindset. Our audience, they love it. So I'm just curious on what that means to you and how you think about, getting yourself in the right headspace to not only lead your own business, but you've got a team to lead. You've got a lot of responsibility. You've got a family to take care of as well, and children. So let's talk about mindset and sort of how you think about it.
I mean, honestly, DJ, I couldn't be more passionate about mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, my belief and our belief with a lot of people that we surround ourselves around is, 90% of success is mindset. Right. Yeah. And I've been passionate around the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. I referenced it already once. And at the end of the day, the first half of that book is about mindset. Right. And it's about, you need to think it first, right? You need to think it and believe it before you start to implement it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't think it and believe it, you're not going to succeed, period. Right. So it's the same thing with so much. It's just the passion around that, around with also raising children, right? Just talking to them about what their mindset needs to be, and removing those limited beliefs from their life of, oh, I can't do that, or no. And, and really kind of, leading with yes and how instead of no because, right? And really, the plans and the strategies can always be there. Somebody has already done this before you, right? Whether it's in real estate, building a business, parenting, whatever it is, investing, somebody has already done it. The plans are there. But the first domino is believing that you can do it, right? And if you don't believe that you can do it, you're done, you're toast, right? So having that mindset.
Or even just, if you're brand new to the industry and you're like, well, I don't really have any confidence because I don't know enough to be confident. I would say if that's where you are, maybe just have the belief that you can become competent, that you can learn this stuff, that thankfully success does leave clues. And there are, just almost an infinite amount of resources these days for successful agents, including just listening to this podcast. But certainly there's a million books and YouTube videos you can watch about sort of the skill set if you don't work at an office where there's training or support, it's amazing now you can actually get that. So I almost think, you're so right. Is just believing that either, you have the skills already to do it, or that you can develop the skills to be able to do it. And thankfully we're in an industry where there's so many members, so many real estate agents, that there's just so much material out there to learn from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on in what you say there. And like I said, be strategic as far as how you're going to think and what your mindset is. And then again, just emulate somebody's business that you want is what I would suggest to others, right? There are the people that are out there that produce big numbers with big teams, and that might be their life by design that they want. I have chosen over my career that, time is more important to me now than money, right? At the end of the day, I've made some investments and done some things that, and have some income coming in that I have funded the life that I want with some of these investments. And time with my family and the people I care for and my team is more important. So that was a mindset shift for me, right? So again, that's the beauty of mindset of choose it and then go for it.
Yeah, boy, you said a lot there. This idea of emulating success it's so interesting. I ask a lot of times the top producers that are on our show, how often do newly licensed agents or agents that maybe they aren't even newly licensed, but just, agents who are struggling or who are looking to sort of get that next level of business, how often they're reaching out to these, because we only interview top 1% agents from all over the country. And almost exclusively they say, I don't get that many requests from other agents that say, hey, can I take you out for a quick cup of coffee and learn a little bit about what you do? Or can I just sit in your office while you're doing some stuff? It's surprising, and I'm not suggesting every one of our listeners immediately message Joe to take his time, because we know how important time is for him. But it is something that I'm sure you'd recommend to agents, is find somebody that you admire and reach out. And I bet you'd be shocked how many people say, sure, I'll give you a little bit of time.
Absolutely, DJ, 100%. I mean, that's probably the one thing that I would like everyone to hear on this, right? Is find the person that's business you want or life you want to emulate, and then reach out to them, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't hear their story or hear how they approached it or their failures, right? As well as their successes, you're just assuming that how it went. And we all know what happens when you assume, right? So at the end of the day, you need to hear it from them, and they will be willing. For the most part, they're going to be willing, because they don't want you to have the same struggles that they had. They're going to be willing to share all of their successes, all of their failures with you.
And they also might over time say, hey, I have a team, I have a group. I'd love to talk to you about joining forces. So I know that there's possibly some, even aside from all the skills you'll learn and the habits you'll learn, might have some business opportunities there as well. So don't be shy, reach out to these top agents. When we first started this show is all about talking to top producers. And we just reached out to a bunch, and eventually some people said, yeah. And now we don't really have to do that, but it is something that we were I mean, we were nobody and nobody knew us. And we said, hey, could we have you, on the show? And would you be willing to tell, our non-existent audience at the time all about your business? And they said, sure. And I don't know that we ever got turned down, maybe once or twice, but hundreds and hundreds of episodes later, it's pretty amazing that most top producers like yourself are so generous and willing to share a little bit of their knowledge with other agents. And I also know disruption is very interesting to you as well. And we hear about the real estate industry being disrupted, I suspect, since the beginning of your career, even, although maybe that word wasn't used as much. But really, there's been a huge evolution in technology since you started and to where we are today. And there's new players in the space all the time. Some make it, some don't. Some are profitable, some aren't. But it really has changed the way the real estate agent, or broker, here in Illinois, we call them all brokers, but how they interact with clients and what their responsibilities are. Probably when you started, I imagine the MLS wasn't easily available to people outside of this industry. It was really behind lock and key. The Zillows of the world hadn't really become a thing yet. And so it wasn't as easy to find the inventory if you were not working with an agent. Now, of course, anyone can get to the MLS without an agent. So let's talk about disruptors and what that means to you and how you found that impacting your business.
Well, I mean, the reason, DJ, thank you for asking me that, because the reason I'm so passionate about it is this business, this industry has been such a blessing for me and my family, right? So I'm passionate that I do what I can to keep the agent as the fiduciary and keep the agent in the center of the transaction. Now, in my opinion, the fundamentals are always going to win, right? I'm a big reader of John Wooden, and
Oh, sure.
right? The fundamentals are always going to win. So master the fundamentals is what I want people to hear. And by doing that, it's time on task over time with these fundamentals, right? So, to go out and play in the NBA and play on an all-star game and you can't dribble, right? You're not gonna do very well, right? So at the end of the day, master that. But when we talk about disruption, you'll agree with me, DJ. I mean, it's complete chaos out there, right?
Complete chaos.
I don't know if the consumer knows who to, go to or trust anything anymore, right? So, but the reason that I see what's going on and why I'm so passionate about it is because we can remain as a fiduciary if we all do it on a united front, right? And my suggestion is that we master the fundamentals of running a business. We don't get attracted to those shiny objects. We use technology to enhance the experience, but we remain the fiduciary in the center of the transaction, if that makes sense.
It does. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you see the role of the agent as today, and maybe how that shifted a little. I think you're right, and I'm a huge coach. I know nothing about sports, truthfully, but I know who Coach John Wooden was, and he was the UCLA coach, and he basically was the winningest coach in NCAA history. I don't know if that's changed, but I think he won 7 NCAA championships in a row or something like that. And then I think he won like 9 over 13 years or whatever, something that's never been replicated. And he was only a fundamentals guy. In fact, one of my favorite John Wooden sort of stories was I heard him interviewed once, and they said, "Do you really never look at the scoreboards?" He talked about shiny objects, maybe getting that $1 million listing or whatever, that just amazing client that's going to take your business to the next level. I thought that way when we partnered with Facebook and Zillow to come on our show. I thought, oh my gosh, this is the shiny object. This is going to take my podcast. And I love both Facebook and Zillow. I'm in no way suggesting that they weren't great partners. They are, but did not take my podcast to the next level. But Coach John Wooden said, I never look at the scoreboard. And so I went, okay, he looks at the scoreboard. And he was like, no, I legitimately never look at the scoreboard because it doesn't matter. He said, I don't care if we win or lose, because if he would tell his players, if you just exercise the fundamentals, you'll walk off the court and you'll know if you tried your hardest. If you tried your hardest, you're going to feel good no matter what happens to the scoreboard. And even if you do win, but you didn't try your hardest, you're not going to feel good. So I'm such a big fan of that. I apologize for going on a little tear there, but I'm such a big fan of John Wooden. So anyway, but yeah, let's talk about the role of the agent. How has it shifted, and how has technology made part of the agent sort of responsibilities easier even?
Yeah, I mean, so again, my coaching and my training has always been, hey, the business has always been agent led and technology enhanced, right? That has now shifted where it's now going to be technology led and agent enhanced. So at the end of the day, that experience that needs to be given to the consumer has never been more heightened than it is right now, right? People want to feel good. They want to feel communicated to, right? So the disruption, I personally think that you have all of the focus on the technology disruption. And at the end of the day, really the internal agent is really disrupting the industry as well with teams and expansion, right?
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, like I encourage everyone to go at this if you want to do it by yourself or build your own team. And you should also consider joining a team as well, because the service that these teams are providing now to the consumer is at the highest level, right? And there's an expectation now from the consumer that there's an instant response and there's a great experience and things. So using technology as that tool, right, to help the people and the systems and the tools, right? That's any business model, people, systems, tools. Using the technology as the tool to help communicate better is important. But giving that experience, in my opinion, is the disruption that is happening and needs to happen, right? And we are giving that, and now the real estate industry is just upping their game, right?
Yes, I agree. And I just went through a buying process myself. And even though I'm in the industry and we have what 800 realtors here at our own firm, and at the firm you're at, there's more than that here in the Chicagoland area. And I thought, oh, I won't go through the emotional ups and downs of the buying process. I had been through it before. I thought, oh, I not only have I been through this before, I'm in the industry. This is not going to be emotionally challenging for me, and it was. And I was freaking out the whole time during the process from start to finish. I was completely stressed. I was, going through that emotional roller coaster of, well, they want this and we want this, and just, oh, is this going to fall apart? Can I afford it, et cetera? And I really relied upon my boss, who helped me through it, to really just talk me off the ledge a bunch. And I realized, the average consumer, I'm a little high strung, but I don't think I worry more than the average person. But I said, if I'm in this industry and I'm freaking out about a purchase and it isn't even my first purchase, this has got to be something that I don't think technology has solved for yet. The sort of emotional intelligence that an agent can bring to sort of keeping their client, you said, feeling it, at least if not good, neutral, or at least if they're feeling negative, they are there to hear that and help them and empathize and tell them, what is needed so that they can relax a bit. And that's something that I think, if technology ever figures that out, I think we're all in trouble one day, but it's probably not going to figure it out, because it is a human to human sort of thing. Empathy, sympathy, connection, and just problem solving, is really still a face-to-face or human-to-human interaction. So I'm curious on how important that is for your team when you talked about, the role of the agent shifting a bit, and technology is kind of now leading the way, but I don't know if technology can solve for that yet.
No, I agree with you. I mean, there's nothing like communication, right? So what's your communication strategy, right? So, in my opinion, our team goes to, hey, what are the systems that need to be running, right, for the people to implement, and then the tools, right, people, systems, and tools. But when you ask about our team, it's what is the communication system, right? Because at the end of the day, like if you're a top producing team and you're holding 50 to 150 listings at a time, some of these teams are now. Well, the one client's waking up, it's only their home, right?
Yeah, they don't care about the other.
They don't care about the 149, right? They're waking up. So what is the communication system so that these people are at ease all the time, right? And you mentioned something, DJ, and I'm gonna go back to it. So think about that anxiety, right? And you're in the industry, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, my wife and I purchased a home a year ago. Actually, it was about exactly a year ago. Couple of days ago, and my sister-in-law, who's a great real estate agent, is on our team. She was our agent. Like I wasn't. I was not dealing with it. I couldn't deal with it. I was like, nope. This is on her. So a top producing real estate agent hired a real estate agent to buy the home. So
well, all professional athletes have coaches, right? Yeah. So it makes perfect sense. I did the same thing. I think I was technically the agent on my deal, but really my boss did everything, because I said, I don't know what I'm too emotional about this. And I'm not thinking clearly, and I don't want to, what do they say? Like a lawyer who represents himself as a fool for a client or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not to say that people can't do their own transactions, but just the idea that it can be that stressful and emotional to have, an objective third party come in and help. Again, that's not something technology could solve, but what or not yet, at least, and hopefully never. But what I did zero in on is something that you said that I think is so important for agents to hear, which is having a communication strat. Like most people don't have a well-defined communication policy or platform. Like you were saying, 33 touches, right? That's a communication a strategy and process, and it's difficult to implement that, but at least that every single person in your sphere is going to get touched, that whatever your team's policy is, but they already know that before they're even a client, they're never going to forget me. They might choose one day not to use me, but they're not going to forget about me, because they're going to get touched by me all of these different ways. And I think most of our audience, could, if you don't already have some sort of communication strategy or policy, and Millionaire Real Estate Agent gives you a great example of how to set one up. That is something to consider for 2022 is, don't leave it up for chance that the people in your sphere are just going to instantly use you just because you're their friend. They might forget that you're a realtor, or they might just out of sight, out of mind. And having a communication strategy, whether it's an existing client. I'm sorry to monopolize this, but I just was reminded of a top producer in Chicago. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was somebody within like the top 10 or 15 producers in all of the Chicagoland area out of about 44,000 realtors. And I asked her, what's the secret to communication? And she said, I'm embarrassed to say this. She says, but I call every one of my clients every week and give them an update. And I said, okay. And what else? And she goes, that's pretty much it. And I said, that's it? And she goes, well, I do other things too. But she goes, that's the one thing I do that most realtors won't even do is call my client every week and say, here's what's going on. So I just was reminded of that.
I mean, DJ, think about what we've covered here, right? It's like, we talk about the workout and your trainer, right? Like, going back to that, it's like, hey, pick something and just do it. Right. Yeah. And the problem with the entrepreneurial real estate agent sometimes is we think that we're going to do it all and all at once. Yeah. And we don't do one thing and do it. So you work out as your strategy, right? With your training, right? Mm-hmm. This agent says, hey, no, this is my system. I call them once a week and that's it. Well, that works. So, so don't reinvent the wheel. Keep doing that. Right. So if your trainer said to you, hey, you want to lose some weight, you got to go run 5 miles a day and you're not a runner, you're not going to do it. Right. But they're building a strategy for you that you're going to do.
And I think too, in business, as you've done with building a group and building a team, which is so important. Not that everyone has to do that. Of course, not everyone does, but think about it from a customer perspective. If all of a sudden I'm going to hire Joe and get access to the resources that Joe's team provides, which Joe has a large team and they all have different skills. And Joe's, going to, charge a particular fee for his services and say, oh, by the way, you get access to my entire team versus just the solo practitioner. And that's not to say that you can't be a successful solo practitioner. Of course you can. Lots of people are, but this idea of leveraging and what Joe said is, hey, maybe you're not good at something. Well, maybe you can partner up with somebody who is good at that other thing that you just don't want to do, or you're not good at, or you don't care about, but should get done. That fundamental of, I should be at open houses, and I'm going to hire someone else to help do all of those, or to partner with me. And maybe they're not good at things that I am good at. So I do love this idea of working together but at what point in your career did you find that it was time to start a team? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, DJ, because at my previous brokerage, I did a lot of development sales, right?
Yeah.
And I was juggling development sales and outside brokerage at the same time.
Ouch.
So again, by default, I had to just build a team before I even knew there was a strategy out there or it was going to become a thing, right?
Right.
So I had to find the leverage right away because there wasn't enough time in the day, right?
Right.
So, I now coach and know the proven strategies of when to build a team, and I'll get to that in a second. But I just by default just had to say, hey, I need help, right? I need leverage. I need somebody to take these buyers out, things like that. And I just did it. So I did that early on, and it was a mess and it was chaos because I wasn't following a plan, right? So I learned a lot. But at the end of the day, when I walked into an environment where it taught the fundamentals of how to build a team, and what the actual data was, and people weren't pontificating their opinion, right. I followed the plan, right? And I followed the plan. And I would tell any realtor right now that leverage is key. And depending on your market and where you're at, you can do 0 to about 30, maybe 36 homes a year. With 36 homes is a lot by yourself, 3 homes a month. But when you're tracking to do 24 to 30 homes a month, you need to start looking for leverage right away.
Yeah. And so it is one of those things where we're now, and think of it too for our listeners on just how well that looks in a listing presentation, that you're basically, maybe you can even charge more if you have a team, because you can say, well, we're have more mouths to feed here, and we're offering more services that the individual practitioner, maybe just can't do because we've sort of scaled this up. But having people to leverage. You also said something that I just was curious this is a completely sort of not off topic per se, but off the conversation we're having. I'm just curious if you had a general thought. You talked about working with developments, and that is a lot of our listeners' dream situation is to work with developers. Of course, every realtor wants to get chosen, maybe not every realtor, but a lot of them want to get chosen to represent certain projects. Do you have any suggestions about somebody who goes, I've never really done that, but I would love to learn sort of how to develop those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, so I know I sound like a broken record and there's no sexiness to this, DJ, but there's no difference than staying in touch with it's building a relationship. There's no difference than staying in touch with your sphere. If this person just develops more homes than selling one, it's really the same strategy as far as forming the relationship with them. Now there's a second step to that, right? And that you have to educate yourself on how to help market a building or a development and things like that, and how to price it out and all that jazz. But again, go find somebody who's done it and ask them for their advice. Ask them to help you, ask them for, you can do a referral fee from them or some sort, or partner up with them, which you said earlier. But the beginning of your question is pick who you want to be in business with, and then go talk to them and build a community with them. Right. That's again, there's no sexiness. It's just the fundamentals.
Well, I almost think that's a great place to end, because that is really the lesson of, we've done 300 and whatever episodes of the show now, and that is always been a consistent message, and I think it's a good one for people to hear. And yeah, maybe it isn't sexy, but when I go work out at the gym and my trainer has me do push-ups, that's not sexy either. But it's a heck of a good idea. And so I think fundamentals are what win the game most of the time. Sometimes you get lucky, but most people, I don't think, can sustain luck over too long of a period. But certainly fundamentals can get you through, and mindset being one of those fundamentals. So I think what a perfect message to sort of end on. I do want to mention for any of our listeners, a couple of opportunities for you with Joe and his team. If you are an agent here in the Chicagoland area, and maybe you're not getting the assistance you need from your company, or you just want to see what other opportunities are out there, Joe and his team would love the opportunity to chat with you. They are a top producing team here in the Chicagoland area. So you can always find them at Joe's, and you can reach out to them via Joe's website, which is thezpg.com. And also, if you're an agent from outside of Chicago, of course, we have agents from all over the country and be in other countries. And if you do have clients moving to the Chicagoland area, or you have referrals that you are looking for a good Chicago agent to work with, well, yeah, check out the Zimmerman Group. Again, thezpg.com. Joe is here. I can vouch, not that Joe needs me to vouch for him, but here in the Chicagoland area, Joe and his team are very incredibly well respected, and you probably won't be in any better hands. So definitely reach out to him. And if there's any buyers and sellers out there that also just want to work with a top producing team, or renters or developers, reach out to the Zimmerman Group at thezpg.com. All their contact information is there. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on our show. I know you were on when I first started the show, believe it or not, 4 or 5 years ago. You were on my list of people to introduce, or people to get on the show, and I'm glad we were able to grab a few minutes of your time. So thank you for being on the show, and every one of your messages, I think, will resonate with our audience, because, well, clearly it's worked for you, and it seems to be a common sense approach. So on behalf of the audience, we want to thank Joe and for coming on. And I know how much free time Joe has, and it isn't much. And so I appreciate you jumping on for some time with us. And also, on behalf of Joe and myself, we want to thank our listeners and our viewers for continuing to support our show. In addition to checking out Joe's website, definitely check out ours as well. We have all of our episodes are streamed right from a browser. If you go to keepingitrealpod.com, you can also subscribe to our show with any podcast app that you might be using, including iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, all the different places to listen to podcasts. So please tell a friend as well about this show. Think of one other agent that that could benefit from hearing from this great conversation with Joe, and send them a link to this episode. We would appreciate it. It will help continue to keep our show running. So Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It really was about 4 years that I wanted to get you on here. So I'm so grateful that we finally did. And we thank you, and we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, DJ. Appreciate it very much.